So obviously, Paddy, we thank you today for joining us. You obviously one of the most respected mental conditioning and high performance coaches in international cricket and sport. You were a key member, obviously, of the Indian support staff that won the 2011 World Cup. We obviously saw those iconic photos with you and Gary that will always be with us. We would have liked it with us, actually. But
of course.
But you worked with the greats, Sachin Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid, Virat Kohli, Gautam Gambhir. Locally, obviously, as a high-performance director with our greatest Jacques Kallis, Graham Smith, Faf. Today, obviously, sport goes beyond focusing on just purely the sport. It's a mindset, it's the leadership, it's performing under pressure. So, Paddy, welcome to this podcast of ours. It's obviously driven by our South Coast radio station, our business called Liquid Immerse, and the Kumashen Moodley Cricket Academy. Paddy, most people know you as a high-performance coach, some of the greatest icons. But where did your own journey begin?
First of all, thanks very much for the invitation. It's really cool to be here and having this conversation with you. And thanks to the listeners, obviously, for offering up your time to listen in. So my journey, I think, once you've got some gray hairs like I've got, the journey has been long. But I guess some of the highlights for me was I started out as a sports scientist. I did a biokinetics honors, a sports science master's. And my first ever job was actually the fitness trainer of the South African cricket team. And I was fortunate enough to be the first full-time fitness trainer in world cricket back in the mid-1990s. At that stage, every international cricket team in the world only had 3 support staff. Today, they've got 11 plus. And the 3 was the coach, the manager, and the physiotherapist. And the coach was the batting coach, the bowling coach, the fielding coach, and the fitness trainer. And at the time, Bob Woolmer was the coach, Hansie was the captain, and they decided that fitness was important enough to actually have a dedicated full-time staff member, because Hansie was completely into fitness. Yeah. Normally in those environments, Bob Woolmer would have been responsible for the pit fitness, but I think Bob was he was more skilled around the buffet table than he was around the gym. With the highest respect, I love Bob to death. So that's really where my journey started. Is as a 23-year-old, I got to travel the world inside of an international cricket team and got to understand how these players work, how I got to meet other international cricketers, how the system works, the mindset, what it takes to really make it to the top. Also, probably learned more about what are the mistakes that people made that prevented them really materializing their talent. And then if I have to fast forward, maybe 8 years from there, I'd actually given up fitness training and biokinetics. For me, I felt that there was something a lot more. I didn't know what it was, but I didn't want to just help players get their bodies into condition, because we had some of the best conditioned athletes, but they still weren't delivering anywhere near their potential. And it was when I did a second master's degree in business coaching, interestingly, and in that 2-year period, I came to understand what was happening in the business leadership landscape that was really inviting and moving leaders to move from an older style industrial age leadership approach, and how the internet fundamentally changed the way leaders needed to lead. We're now in the internet age, or the knowledge age, and we're in knowledge age 2.0 now with artificial intelligence. It's no longer possible. 20 years ago, you became leader because you were the smartest person or the cleverest person or the most strategically minded. And the way people led was telling people what to do. And the same thing was happening in almost all sports environments. As sports coaches, they weren't actually coaches. Coach is a title, but it also refers to a process. In sport, mostly back then, they were instructors. So people who knew what to do and telling other people what to do. And I saw how that was fundamentally needed to change in the business landscape. And I saw that very clearly this change was going to happen in sport as well, with the idea of one coach having all the knowledge and telling players what to do and having them as diligent and obedient followers of instruction was not going to be the sport coaching approach and high performance approach going into the future. So in that business coaching degree, I understood its application in sport and was really passionate about bringing this shift in coaching approach into sport. And one of the things that I also saw was when a leader or a coach tells an athlete what to do and analyze when something goes wrong, the coach or the leader analyzes what went wrong and presents the solution. You never end up having a conversation around the mental game. What went on, for example, what went on in your mind when you played that particular shot? Because in the nets and in the last few games, in that same situation, you haven't played that shot. But coaches, we see the technical error or the tactical error, and we address that, and we go into the nets, throw balls at them, and immediately the player gets it right. But the reality is almost all errors in sport that are forced errors, or unforced errors, I'll get that wrong, sorry. It's 90% of all errors are athletes' own doing. And almost 100% of those it's something has changed in the mind and the thinking that translates into a technical, tactical, or strategic error. But in the old school coaching approach, you never, ever got to have a conversation because the athlete was never asked to share with the coach what was going on for you in that moment that was different to another moment. So, yeah, that's sort of a part of my journey. And then I guess I actually started out wanting to coach leaders and coach coaches. But back in the early 2000s, when I approached the incumbent provincial and international cricket coaches in South Africa, and my master's thesis had actually studied all 34 provincial coaches who had coached for a 15-year period in South Africa prior to then, and I'd got the best players in South Africa to tell me, what was your experience of all of the professional provincial coaches in South Africa, number one. Number two, what would you ideally want from them? And number three, what is the best businesses, leaders in the world doing? And I ended up with a very crystal clear story, and not the gospel according to Paddy Upton. What the coaches were doing and what the players wanted from them was fundamentally different. And what the players wanted from those coaches and what the best leaders in the world in business were doing was statistically the same thing. And none of those players had read business leadership coaching books. So it was very clear that the players were already tracking what is the change that is needed. And so when I approached these coaches, every single one of them to a person was closed to looking at the idea that maybe the way I've been doing this for the last 10, 15, 20 years is actually becoming more and more redundant or less and less impactful. And there's probably a better way of doing it. And it's the old adage that very often old dogs, still be able to teach them new tricks. And successful people tend to be less open to, or certainly up until 10 years ago, the very successful people tended to be less open to feedback and less open to change. So the fact that those doors closed on me, I spent all my time coaching in business until was probably a pivotal moment. It was actually quite funny, was that, well, not funny, but now when I look back on it, Jacques Kallis was midway through his career. He'd been about 13 months or 14 months at the time without scoring 100. Yeah. And I knew his personal circumstances, his family circumstances. His mom had died when he was young. I understood his relationship with his father. And his father had recently died. His girlfriend had recently broken up with him. And I phoned Jacques and I said, listen, at the time I was doing nothing in sports. I was coaching in business. And I said, I've got some ideas and some thinking. Let's have a cup of coffee and maybe I can help work some things through. And we had 4 meetings, about an hour a meeting, and we discussed, his mental game. And the West Indies came here shortly after that for a 5-match test series. And he went and he scored, after 14 months of not scoring 100, he scored a century in 5 consecutive test matches.
Unbelievable, yeah.
And somebody in the media said to him, like, what changed? And one of the things he happened to mention was that I did some work with Paddy. And after that interview, and when that was published, the phone started ringing. And literally, that's how I became a mental conditioning coach.
Oh, wow.
Which
year was it again, Paddy?
I'm not very good with historical stuff, to be honest. It was 2006. I'm guessing.
Okay.
I'm not good with that stuff.
Quite early on, obviously, and that became the breakthrough as such.
Yeah, and then then I started working with Graham Smith when he was having some leadership challenges, and sort of midway through his captaincy, I worked with Gary Kirsten before his final year of international cricket. And post the work we did, he's spoken openly about this. It wasn't just the work we did, but it was post that he had his best year ever. And so when he announced the coach of the Indian national team, straight away he called me. We'd been friends for a long time and worked together a lot. I was his fitness trainer at the beginning of his career and his mental coach at the end of his career. And he said, I want you to come to India and do to the Indian cricketers what you did with me to help me set up my final year. So that's essentially how I ended up really kicking off this part of my career as the mental coach of the Indian national cricket team. And as you mentioned earlier, we got to the #1 test team. We won the World Cup. And since then, I've branched into a number of other sports. And that was a damn long answer. So I'm going to shut up now.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. Obviously, you've mentioned sport. You've mentioned the various sports. You've mentioned going into working with in a corporate environment with business leaders. What's the core truth about human performance that remains constant in all these worlds?
Well, the fundamentals have always been around. They're still equally as applicable as ever, and I think going forwards they will be. So there's nothing better than the basics. There's no new shiny fancy. Everyone's chasing a new shiny fancy thing out there, but actually doing the basics right, there's no replacement. Yeah. And I would say, for me, the Ferrari of mental performance sayings is focus on the process and let the result look after itself. Now, we've all heard that, we all know that, and none of the listeners will be excited and go, oh, I must quickly write that down, because it's so old, it's not Correct. Sexy anymore.
Correct.
But it's like everybody owning a Ferrari, and if everybody owned a Ferrari, it wouldn't be cool to own a Ferrari.
Absolutely.
But that saying, although we've all heard it and it's lost its shine, it's lost its sexiness, it is still the Ferrari of sport performance sayings, and people who really get in the seat and they understand that Ferrari, understand what does that really mean at its depth, focus on the process, do what I need to do my training, do my exercise, do my preparation, get out there, focus one moment at a time on the play that is in front of me in the moment. I have a plan in the background. I let go of the plan. Of course, I have a plan to win. And of course, I have a plan to not lose. But I have no attachment to whether that plan actually manifests. If I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. But for now, I'm going to focus on playing the game or doing whatever I'm doing or giving the presentation or having this podcast, focusing on this moment that's in front of me, and understanding what's important and bring the best of myself to this moment. And if I do that, unattached to the results, that sets up with the best possible chance of delivering on your potential most consistently.
That's fantastic advice, really. Honestly, it is. And I hope that whoever's going to be listening to this fully understands that and sticks with that, because, we say trust the process, stick with the process. And you're right, it's been there forever. It's just that our application and execution of it just been falling by the wayside.
Yeah. Now, I'll give you a practical example to bring that to life. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, please do.
Virat Kohli for 10 years was the number 1, 2, or 3 batsman. He held the top 3 positions in all 3 formats of the game as a batsman for 10 years consecutively.
Sure.
Virat is nowhere near the best batsman, even in the town that he currently lives in. He's not the best batsman even in the town, never mind the whole of India, even though he doesn't live in India now. He doesn't sweep. He doesn't ramp. He doesn't hook.
Yeah.
It's a very limited game. But he's looked at what are all the ingredients that I need to put together in order to be the best batsman I can be at international level. So his training, his exercise, he trains better than anybody in the world. His diet, he is more meticulous with his eating than any other cricketer in the world. His sleep, incredibly important. It's one of the single most, it's not that sleep won't make you a better performer, but compromising or having bad sleep is the quickest way to undermine your performance in every single aspect of life. Virat pays incredible attention to the quality of his sleep, the quality of his recovery, his game plan, sticking to his game plan. Every coach Virat has ever played under says to him, when the spinner comes onto bowl, no one puts anyone behind square in the leg side. They know you're trying to hit the ball through the mid-wicket area, so they pack the mid-wicket area. If you sweep once or twice, they have to move one of those fielders from the mid-wicket area behind square in the leg side. It'll open up your gap, and then you can pick it off. And Virat goes, no, I'm not going to sweep. They can put an extra fielder there. I'm just going to get even better at hitting it through the leg side. They can put 5 fielders there. I'll hit it between them.
Wow.
So he has just got the basics right. And people keep asking, and like I've been lucky, I've been Virat's personal mental coach for a number of years. People say to me, what is it he does? He's got something special to be as good as he is. It's like, his specialness is he does the unsexy, uncool, boring stuff better than anybody else, and he sticks with it.
So,
and it's quite a letdown for people who are wanting some cool pearl of wisdom.
No, absolutely. So I was just listening yesterday to, and I'm sure I played it previously as well on your Facebook page, Harbhajan Singh. I was just talking to my brother about it, and he spoke about to you about not being the most talented around the group of players that he had, but he had one thing, and that was hard work, discipline, continuously trusting the process and doing the best that he can.
Yeah. And sticking with it when most people would have given up because it wasn't quite delivering the results. And the Harbhajan Singhs of this world, there are so many of them. Gary Kirsten. Gary was the 3rd best batsman in his family.
Yeah.
Gary, nobody would walk across the road to go and watch Gary Kirsten bat. He late cut and he cover drive square of the wicket. And he flicked off his hip. That was it. But he played 101 test matches for his country. When he left school, Gary Kirsten was an off spinner for UCT who batted number 8 and struggled to make the first team at 19 years old. God. And he made his way up to number 4 batsman. When he was picked for Western Province, was the first time ever he had opened the batting.
Wow.
But he made the most of it. Mike Hussey from Australia, very limited cricketer, but just did all the basics right to make the most of their talent. And the beautiful thing is that's available to all of us. It is. It is.
And you're 100% correct. So, we obviously living in a world of intense pressure. Whether it's a young cricketer that's trying to cut some selection or a business owner facing financial challenges, business pressures, the economy is not so great locally and globally as well. What are the most undervalued skills that you think that are required to thrive under pressure?
Sure. It's a hell of a question. So what comes to me is what differentiates people who do well under pressure versus the vast majority who capitulate and deliver below their potential inconsistently under pressure. And it boils down to self-esteem.
That's a great point.
Being okay with who I am as a person. And the most powerful work that I would do with athletes is to get them to genuinely be okay with who I am as a person, be comfortable with what I'm good at, with what I know, with what I've accomplished, with my existing skills, with my existing knowledge, be 100% happy with that. And equally, and at the same time, be hungry to learn more, know more, get better. And that's number 1. Number 2 is when I'm okay within myself, I want to do well, but I'm not desperate to do well. And I don't want to do badly and lose and embarrass myself, but I'm not scared of that. Because 2 of the biggest mental obstacles to all performance in sport, and I hazard a guess in life, is pressure and fear. Pressure is very simple. We use the word all the time, pressure and fear, but do we actually know where it comes from, what it is? And I think the answer sits in understanding it. Pressure comes from the amount of value we place on a result. So the more important it is to do well at some point in the future, hit a deadline, make a number, score 100, the more important it is, and we do that to ourselves in our own head, the more pressure we feel. That's why finals are, in big moments and big games have the highest pressure. But that comes from me being here now, my mind dwelling at the result at some point in the future. And the more attached I am to that, the less present I am and the more pressure I feel. Conversely, the more secure I am within myself, I want to do well, but I don't need to do well. So I'm not overly influenced by chasing success into the future. And similarly, fear comes from not wanting things to go badly in future. If I'm secure within myself, I accept and I know things might go wrong. People criticize me, things might go badly, and I'm okay with it. And if I'm okay, it frees me up to be fully present, to focus on the process in the moment. But the less secure I am within myself, the more external validation I need from the world out there. And the best form of external validation in sport is winning, because then people praise me and love me and I feel good about myself. It's a very bad situation when you need the praise in order to feel good. And in sport, you read people who don't have a high self-esteem, what we call confidence players. They're terrified of doing badly because the criticism, being dropped, the embarrassment, the disappointment is just so much for them because they attach their identity to their results. And if you can indulge me, I want to tell you a story that illustrates that better than the theory I've given you. But go ahead with your question.
So that's a great point. You're talking about managing expectation as well. When we sit from our side behind the television or watching the game at a stadium, we look at the players that are there. We are all under the impression that each and every one of them that's there is well positioned, well conditioned to perform at that level. When we see these guys underperform, for an example, we look at our local guys at the moment, they're not performing, and like a guy, like for an example, and it's probably not the best thing to mention names, but you look at David Miller went through a little bit of a patch, and we're always expecting him to be Killer Miller, to keep knocking it out of the park.
Yeah.
And he doesn't deliver there. What kind of pressures are these guys feeling, though? I mean, it must be immense and quite a lot to deal with, Paddy.
But the thing about these top athletes, and I have some experience, not a huge amount. I've worked with 20 athletes across 20 different sports, pretty much at the highest level of the game, and literally hundreds of them. I've never met one who doesn't feel pressure, doesn't feel fear, doesn't have anxiety. I've never met one who doesn't have insecurities, doubts, vulnerabilities, that narrative that I'm not good enough, can I do this, suffer imposter syndrome. They all have that. It is a human condition. Yeah. They are not some super special gifted people, and they haven't worked through it with some mental coach. When I work with people and do my best mental coaching over years with some athletes, do I help them not have fear, not have anxiety, not have pressure, not have vulnerabilities, not have insecurities? No, they still have them. Those are not a problem. And too many people think, and I get calls from parents saying my child suffers from doubt or anxiety or pressure or nerves. It's like, and the problem is, like, welcome to the human race. Everyone has that. What these top athletes do better than most is they suffer those distractions. They're able to, number one, recognize the fact that I've now got caught up in some loop of fear, anxiety, doubt, insecurity, imposter syndrome, whatever it might be. They recognize it, number one, and they come back to bringing their focus onto what do I actually need to be focused on right now. And the example would be, it's like going to a restaurant with on a first date or with your partner or something on an anniversary, and you're sitting and they're telling you a story. Your job, and whether it's the same as whether you're batting or bowling or putting in golf or playing tennis, your job is to focus on the task in front of you, which is listening to your partner. But now somebody puts a song on in the restaurant and it's not a very nice song, it's not very fitting, and they turn the music up too loud. The moment I break my concentration and I start listening to this music and go, how's this music? That's such a shit song. And why is it so loud? Who chooses this playlist? I've now become distracted. What athletes do is that noise, people play bad music. They play it very loud. That noise can be the noise of media, the noise of criticism, the noise of crowds, the noise of pressure, the noise of sponsors, the noise of team owners. It's all background noise in the restaurant. Athletes recognize where I'm now listening or complaining about this noise. I need to bring my focus back and listen to what my partner is saying. Be present at the table and listen to them. And that's what athletes do well, is they avoid the distractions where most of us spend so much of our time distracted.
That's a beautiful point.
And recently I had a conversation with Virat Kohli 6 weeks ago, and
Oh
I
yeah.
reminded him of this again, which we'd spoken about earlier in our conversations. And Virat said, you know what, Paddy, I've actually, now the way I see this is I don't return my attention to my wife sitting opposite me, Anushka. He says, in my head now, what I do is I actually go and sit next to her. So whatever the noise is, he goes and embraces and sits next to what is the task I need to be doing and embrace it.
Exactly. So that's a great piece. I mean, this guy is amazing, right? I mean, Virat's amazing. And for him to say something like that, it tells you what's going on in his mind, you know? And, you know, you're talking about that. I think it was many, many years back, and I'm sure it's Jacques Callas mentioned this while batting. You know, you make your mistake as a batsman when you start focusing on everything else around the ball rather
Yes.
than the ball itself.
Correct.
And that made a lot of sense. You know, whether you're playing in school or a club cricket or whatever level you're playing at, that started to make more sense. And it's not just in cricket. I think it's across the board, like what you're mentioning.
Kumi, when I'll go back to when Jacques and I did that work together midways through his career.
Yeah.
I said we had 4 meetings of about an hour.
Yeah.
We spent 4 hours unpacking and talking about what does it mean to watch the ball.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there you go.
4 hours, the best in the world. And it was
4 hours.
exactly, and that's where he would have got that. Because what Jacques was doing, his father dying, his girlfriend breaking up with him, those were distractions that it took his eye off the ball or took his emotions or took his energy off the ball. And we took 4 hours with the best in the world talking about what does it mean to watch the ball. And what it means is to understand the distractions around the ball. And every single one of us human beings has distractions. We live in a world now where there's more distractions than what there has ever been. If you want to move ahead, understand what are your unique distractions, recognize them, and find a way to come back from your distraction. So most people's distraction is doom scrolling for too long. It doesn't mean stop doom scrolling or remove all the social media apps or throw your phone away. No, manage yourself better around that distraction. So when you start doom scrolling, catch yourself after 3 minutes and come back onto what you're supposed to be doing. Most people doom scroll for an hour and a half and then they realize, yes, I can't, what am I doing here? I spent the last hour and a half on this. That's caught up in distractions. You'll still get distracted. Just return quickly. And you know, for young athletes, parents, I mean, I want to come in there around distractions and mention something is that I'm actually just about to release a course now. It's the most exciting thing I've produced since I wrote my book. It's something I've been working with for 15 years is helping parents how to have a healthy parenting relationship with their kids around sport performance. Because what the research tells us is that, and my experience is that approximately 1/3 of all things that distract athletes from the task at hand is what we call off-field distractions. That's at the highest level of the game. When it comes to children, 2 of the things that drive children to leave sport because of having an unfortunate experience, the 2 biggest influences are parents and coaches. And we know now through research, as I've been doing this at a number of schools, this talk to parents, there are 5 things that parents do with love, with the greatest of intention, but what they do to undermine the relationship with their kid and the relationship with their kids and sport. And there's 5 or 6 things that coaches do.
Okay, that'd be great.
We all do it from the right intention. So when I talk about distractions, there's an entire ecosystem around, particularly an athlete, is what is the noise of your parent? Is it one that's moving you in the right direction? 1/3 of, in fact, the research says 36% of parents undermine their kids' sport participation. Not 0% mean it. It comes from caring love, but it's over-loving, over-emphasizing, over-helping, overemphasis on winning, criticizing kids, criticizing coaches, unrealistic expectations of perfection, pampering, lawnmower parenting, helicopter parenting, etc. So we understand what those things are. They come from the right place. So it's if we can help parents do an even better job. People always said there isn't a parent's playbook. Like I've heard that so many times. We're around coaching or parenting our kids around sport performance. There is now a playbook, and very well research based. The second piece is coaches. How consciously are we coaching our kids to help them learn and grow for themselves? And then the third piece, as I mentioned to you, is if parents and coaches can help kids build their self-esteem from inside, their sense of self-worth separate from their results. You don't need to do well in order to feel good and look good. And you don't need to run so hard from failure or disappointment or loss, because that's a guarantee in life. So self-esteem is probably the single most powerful thing, gift that a coach and a parent can give a child.
So you've obviously worked with all these great players around the world, whether it's you've been close to guys like Sachin, Virat obviously is such an iconic name. We mentioned Jack Callis, Graham Smith, Faf, and so on. You mentioned Gary Kirsten earlier as well. But what separates the good players from the all-time greats, Paddy?
So my answer is, it's my answer, not the answer.
Yeah.
I've always maintained that I'm not impressed by talent. Talent isn't an accomplishment. It's a gift from birth. So someone who's really talented, really what they need to be is grateful to whether it's whatever their higher power, God or parent is that has gifted them that talent. Number one.
Yeah.
Someone who really applies the time, intention, effort into that talent to turn it into results. That is pretty impressive. But again, nobody does that alone. There's parents that have got to take them to training, that buy them stuff. There's coaches that play a role. There's a lot of people that play a role to help convert talent into results over time. It's normally 10 years plus. So there is something about someone who makes the most of their talents, and we had for a long time, for a practical example, South African cricket, you had Herschel Gibbs and Gary Kirsten opening the batting. Gary Kirsten, the third most talented batsman in his family. Herschel Gibbs, the most talented batsman possibly in the world. Gary delivered better results than Herschel because Gary just made more of his talent than what Herschel did.
Oh.
For me, that's 50% of what impresses me is talent converted into results. The other 50% is the quality of person, the quality of human being, the quality of character.
Yeah.
Because I must maintain that probably our two most valuable assets that we have throughout our lifetime is number one, health, and number two, our character. Because our health and our character is what really carries us through life. Health is about me personally. Character is to a large degree relating with other people. So when you get a great athlete who is really a great human being, by that I mean they have a healthy other orientation. So they're not overly selfish, but they're not also people pleasers. The kind of person who's generally role models. I use the example, one of the players that I've got to work with a lot, and I know, very well, and there's a number of others, but I just will mention him because I've worked with him so much, is a Rahul Dravid.
Yeah.
It was a talented cricketer, for sure, but he made the most of his talents. His work ethic was unbelievable, but he's the kind of human being that I have a 19-year-old daughter, and I often say, if my daughter came home with someone of the character of Rahul Dravid, it would make me the happiest father on the planet.
That's
such
incredible.
is his character. And I know as we move now deeper and deeper into the age of AI, and AI is the whole buzzword at the moment, is computers and intelligence. Up until 10 years ago, you could get ahead by being your superior intelligence. That intelligence is now moving into the computer. What is going to be more and more valued, and it is already happening, is what I call human intelligence. There's going to be more value placed on the kind of person we are being, because the intelligence does not get us ahead anymore. And that's, we've heard about things about emotional intelligence and social intelligence and character and ethics and values. Already we're hearing in the HR world, I do more work business coaching than I do sport coaching at the moment. And we're hearing globally this narrative from HR and hiring. People are saying hire for character and train or teach for skills.
Wow.
In sport, more of these T20 leagues than not, and teams around the world, and excuse my terminology, but there is an open conversation, understanding amongst coaches and leaders and owners that we follow a no dickheads policy. Meaning, if somebody's a superstar player and they're a disruptive personality, we don't pick them. It doesn't matter how many runs they're going to deliver. There are examples, Durban's very own Kevin Peterson, he went to England at the peak of his career, was the number 1 test batsman in the England team, one of the top 5 test batsmen in the world. Because of his disruptive personality, he was fired from the team and his international career ended. Those in the know, there's players in the T20. I mean, I'll put it out there, because it's well known and spoken about more and more. Somebody like a Chris Gayle, greatest T20 cricketer, the most sixes, the most runs, one of the most iconic players, highest paid players. He's played for, I think, comfortably over 30 T20 teams over his illustrious career. He's got 2 trophies in his cabinet. Teams didn't win around Chris Gayle. He was a superstar on his own. In his own words, you Google it, he says,
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't get respect from managers. I don't really get respect from players. I don't get respect from coaches. If I don't score runs, I'm of no use to the team. It's like, yes, Chris, you're quite right. Because you only bring runs. You don't help the youngsters. You don't grow people. You don't grow the team. You're not a team energizer. You're someone who is only valuable when you score runs. And if you're not scoring runs, you don't add value. So he was released from most of the teams he played for to the back end of his career.
Absolutely.
In fact, in Australia, the owners of the teams in the Big Bash League in, I think, 2016, 2017 got together and said, we want eyes on, obviously we want to build this league, and Chris Gayle is one of the most iconic players in the world, but there was an agreement that no one would pick him. We don't want him in this league.
Wow.
And that was because of his off-field behavior, particularly, it was a public thing around women. So it's becoming... And the nice thing about that is 10 years ago, if you weren't gifted with intelligence, you potentially were left behind in quite a lot of fields. Now, it's about being the best person you can be, being authentically yourself, working on building your human intelligence, and that is going to be differentiator going forwards. And for me, that's one of the most exciting things that's coming out of this AI period that we involved in. And too many people, I think, are looking at what is AI and artificial intelligence going to take away from us. What it's going to do, it's going to create a gap to say, if by me being the best person I can be, it's actually I'm going to become more and more of a valuable commodity or valuable asset to my family, to my relationship, to my business, to my team. And that's exciting.
It's very important or interesting that you mentioned that, because my next question was actually going to be, and you touched on it, what role does emotional intelligence play in elite sport? And obviously you've taken this from that and taking it into various different perspectives now.
Yeah. So emotional intelligence is just one of the human intelligences, and I think it was a huge marketing success. It is important, but I would say emotional intelligence is a subcomponent of self-awareness.
Okay, perfect.
How am I showing up? Who am I as a person? What is the best version of myself? How am I showing up? How am I managing my mind? How am I managing my emotions? How am I managing my relationships, my social interactions? And that is a journey of continuous learning throughout life. So it's the journey of personal mastery. And I think we've lost a fair bit of that in the last 20, 30 years, where, again, superstars were so celebrated for their... Lance Armstrong was celebrated as the greatest cyclist ever because he was just the person, he had great talent, and he was the specialist when it came to doping in sport. That was his unique skill. But he was so celebrated that everyone looked to those superstars. People looked to business people who make fortunes of money and build this empire, but they really... people close to them will say they're really unsavory, unpleasant people to be around, or stressful people to be around. They don't build others. They build empires, but they don't build people. And I'm not saying one is over the other. It's can you build success in your business? Score runs for your sports team or score tries for your team, but also at the same time, be an energizer who builds others. So that's emotional intelligence. It's social intelligence. It's human intelligence, and contribute not just to the scoreboard, but to the process or the journey of others, because we are social animals. We win together. We don't win alone. So I need to put my runs on the board. That's the selfish piece. And then how do I help others put their runs metaphorically on the board? And then we're starting to get back to living really holistically and wholly as humans. I think we've got, in the last decades, we've got too results oriented, where we applauding superstars who behave like chops, just because of the runs or the money they put on the board. And I think that's going to be, it's already changing, which is exciting. And we need to, at school sports, start at that level and start devaluing. We've placed too much emphasis on winning and provincial sport and representation, particularly in junior school. We know from the research, for example, if your kid, any success up to the age of about 13 has got almost no bearing on how that kid will do later in life. Almost none. But we get so excited when our child makes under 11 or scores 100 under 11 or shows real potential at 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And in the reality, it means absolutely nothing. It just means the biggest meaning and the biggest value to that is the boost to the parent's ego. And if they manage themselves right, they manage their kid right, but too often we don't. So
these lessons for young cricketers, Paddy, I mean, we'll be talking about this. You're talking about a course that you're obviously going to be releasing. I'm not sure if you've released it already, but, how should these young athletes, these kids in school, handle all these setbacks? We're talking about elite athletes that are not performing at a high level. We're talking now about kids in school, their formative ages, playing sport. How do they deal with these setbacks where they're not scoring runs, not performing well, getting dropped from teams? And obviously, there's that old parent element that comes into play as well. How do they manage this?
So hopefully those parents listen to the parents course that I'm going to be launching very soon. That will give a lot of the answers that have never been presented before. But for the kids, the reality is children have developing brains. They have developing bodies. No child's brain up till the age of about 17, 18 years old is sufficiently developed to deliver consistent performances at the level of their potential. It doesn't happen. Losing is an absolutely integral and important part of the journey. To lose, to learn what it feels like, to be able to reflect on what did I do well, what were my lessons, and what can I do differently next time, and continue the journey. And left to their own devices, most children do that naturally. You just need to watch a child. I'm a surfer. You need to go to the beach and watch a kid try and learn to stand up on a surfboard. They stand up and they fall. They stand up and they fall. They stand up and they fall. They get knocked over. The board hits them in the head. They soar. They rub it, they go back. You watch a kid try and do a new trick on a skateboard. They fall, they fall, they fall, they fall, they fall, and they start getting it right. When they get it right, they get so excited and they love the journey of failing and trying again, failing, trying again, learning. So failing is not a problem. Parents make it a problem. Coaches make it a problem because they think kids shouldn't be failing. Feeling pressure, feeling anxiety, feeling fear. Parents come to me, coaches come to you, how do I help my kid get over this? Like, you don't. That's part of the journey. They need to experience that. They need to experience that over and over and over. And the only way, really, that we get to deal with fear is exposure. If you're scared of swimming, as long as you're safe, get in the water and get in the water again and again and again and again. And each time it gets a bit easier and a bit easier and a bit easier. Facing fast bowling, it's going to be terrifying at first. But get back and do it again, and then it'll be a bit less terrifying. And then next time, a bit less terrifying. Keep doing it. And the way we get over fear is exposure to fearful experiences. Feel pressure, play a bad shot, miss a tackle, drop a ball. That's not a problem. That's perfectly normal. No sweat. Next time, what would you do slightly differently to what you did there? Let the kid reflect on it. Come up with an idea of, I think I could get to the ball a little bit quicker and get my hands a bit higher. Okay, cool. Next time, give that a go. You might drop it again next time, but that's okay. But see if you can just have your efforts a little bit better next time. Get the process a little bit more right. And don't worry if you drop it or catch it. A.B. de Villiers drops catches. Quinton de Kock with gloves on, standing behind the stumps, drop catches. If these guys drop catches, so can you. It's okay. And we make failure okay. And you just keep going. So the way to get better at sport, there's no secret. How do athletes get really good? At a young age, they have fun. When they have fun, they play more. And if they play more and they have more fun, they get better. as if they're having fun, they play more. And by playing more, they get better. What sits at the core is having fun with my mates, experimenting, not worrying about winning and losing. That's what parents introduce too early and coaches introduce. I know I've been a coach. I want my team to win because why? Because people judge me to be a good coach.
Absolutely.
So I'm making it about me. That's the coach's ego. Single biggest obstacle to any leader's success is our own ego. When we're doing things for us to look good, whether you're a business leader, whether you're a sports coach, or you're a parent, you want your kid to do well so people can judge me as a good parent. As soon as we move into ego in any leadership position, we are at our least impactful. And the thing is, it happens unconsciously.
You mentioned about kids having fun with their mates, enjoying the game, etc. Obviously, there's a lot of build-up from the home with the parents, and then coaches' egos come into play as well. Parents' egos come into play as well.
Yeah.
So we obviously get a lot of the kids from in the academy, that in the Kumashen Moodley Cricket Academy, that will come through and say to us, especially young guys about 12, 13 years old, I want to play for my country. Is this too much expectation that they're putting themselves under? What kind of advice or what should you tell these kids?
Yeah. So it's important for kids to dream.
Yeah.
It's important for coaches and parents not to try and professionalize that dream.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
So I'll give you a stat, and this is some of the stuff that I talk about in this parents course, that I did the research pre-COVID. Over a 10-year period, there was, and if I remember the numbers correctly, 2,274,000 registered schoolboy cricketers in a 10-year period, I think from 2010 to 2020 in South Africa. And that's schoolboy cricketers, with apologies to the girls, they didn't do the numbers. In that same 10-year period, there was 41 new Proteas caps awarded, which if you translate that for the 10 years after a child leaving school, for 10 years after leaving school, they have a 1 in 54,000 chance, or a 0.00018% chance of going on to play for the Proteas.
That's
so
staggering.
Now, the thing about that 13-year-old, to get back to them, who dreams of playing for the Proteas, I almost guarantee at 4 years old, that same kid dreamt of being a Marvel superhero. At 6 years old, they dreamt of being a fireman or a policeman.
Yeah.
If you sent your kid to fireman academy or policeman academy at 6 years old, then it's fine to send them for professional cricket coaching at 8 or 10 or 12.
Wow.
Don't professionalize their dream. Support their dream. If they want to become a fireman at 6, buy them a fire truck. Let them play with their fire truck in the lounge. If they want to be a professional cricketer or an international cricketer, ask them, so what do you want? No, my mates are going to this cricket academy. Okay, support them by going to the cricket academy, but don't professionalize it. Don't get them to get so focused in technique, for example. Technique's important, but technique is flippin' boring as hell for anyone under the age of 15 or 13. If they play long enough, they'll figure out how to do it. Just ask Paul Adams or Lasith Malinga or Graham Smith in his cover drive.
Absolutely.
Technique it's important, but it's way overrated in a lot of sports.
You're giving great examples there, Paddy. So, Paddy, leadership and culture, right? Both schools, workplaces, you've come across so many of these individuals. Culture can either empower or destroy performance, right?
Yes.
What does a high-performance culture actually look like on a day-to-day basis?
So, a high-performance culture, there's so many elements, but if you boil it down, does somebody talk to other people in their free time, Friday night on the weekend, about the culture in which they operate, whether it's a team or business? Do they actually talk about it, number one?
Yeah.
Do they talk about it positively? Then you've got your culture right. Do they talk about it negatively? You've got your culture wrong. If they don't talk about it at all, your culture is average. So culture is something that engages people. They want to be there. They look forward to be there. Why do people look forward to being in an environment? It's an environment where it meets their natural motivational needs or their purpose. It's Maybe it's enjoyment. Maybe it's they get to learn. Maybe it's they get to grow. Maybe it's they get acknowledged for what they do. Maybe they get recognition. Maybe it's a place for belonging. It's to understand, what do the people in my team or organization need to make them feel part of this, feel engaged. I said belonging, acknowledgement, learning, growing. Understand what it is, and then provide an opportunity to meet that, listen to them, engage them, and then you will get the best out of people. They will want to be there. You'll get the discretionary effort. And that's where an average team will beat it with a great culture, will beat a great team with an average culture, because of those extra little things, the extra help. Very simple thing when I get into a team, a sports team, for example, the first time to analyze culture, there's a whole lot of culture analysis tools that I work with and work with corporates. The easiest thing is I watch when someone makes a mistake,
Okay.
especially a junior player. When people run around to support them and put their arm around them, pick them up and say, don't worry, and cover for them, that team has got a great culture. When senior players or people ignore them, that culture has got questions. And when people go and talk about it afterwards behind their back and say that guy shouldn't be here, then you've got a shit culture. So it's how do we treat people who are struggling? And similarly, when somebody succeeds in great cultures, everyone celebrates it. In shit cultures, people are jealous about it, or they don't say anything, or they go like, okay, now I've got to do even better, and they get selfish about it to try and better that. So and that's all set by the leadership. If you don't have a good culture within your team and you're the leader, the first thing you want to do is look in the mirror and go, what am I not getting right here? Or how can I do this better? Because this is my watch. And as leader, you set the tone for the culture in time, over time.
Definitely so. Now you're talking about leadership. You've obviously been working with leaders, whether it's at the pinnacle of cricket, these franchise owners who are very wealthy. You've worked with great business leaders, wealthy business leaders, successful leaders. How do these leaders bring out the best in people without actually micromanaging them or creating these fear-driving tactics to kind of push them to get better? Because that's counterproductive, it seems.
Yeah. When you use the word micromanage, I just get shivers down my spine. So I'm going to give an answer from slightly out of left field, because there's a lot, but how do I summarize in the big picture? So when it comes to interacting or engaging with the performance environment and people within a performance environment, there's almost two distinct energies. There's a masculine energy, and this is not a gender-based thing. A masculine energy, focus on the goal, focus on the target, is fairly calm, rational, task-oriented. Let's go and figure what we need to do, what systems do we need to have in place, what strategy we need in order to hit the numbers as efficiently as possible. That's masculine energy. You have to have that in a performance environment. That is 50% of the equation about. The other 50% is what I call the feminine energies of leadership. Again, it's not a gender-based thing. Every one of us has masculine and feminine energies. The feminine energies of leadership is the other, it's a person orientation, not a task or goal or outcome orientation. And that's where we bring in our feminine energies of leadership is listening, caring, collaboration, communication, empathy, engagement, emotional intelligence. The most successful leaders at the moment, and even more so going forward, need to have a healthy orientation around systems, structures, strategy in order to optimize the resources that we've got to hit the goals as effectively and as efficiently as possible. You need to have that in place. You also need to have the people engagement. That's where the culture piece comes in. Is there a do we genuinely value people being themselves? And that's where the feminine energies of leadership comes in. And the reality is, sport and business, we've had a real bias towards the masculine and celebration of the masculine energies. Whoever hits the goals the quickest and trims costs the most and delivers the best for the board or the results, they've been lauded for the last 20, 30, 40 years. But now we're seeing the cost of people as we've had too much of a skew towards celebrating just the absolute results on the scoreboard. And we've done that at the expense of people. And now it's not about everyone sitting around in the team or the boardroom giving group hugs and singing Kumbaya, whatever it might be. That creates a lovely, warm, fuzzy environment, but it doesn't move the ship forward. It's having a healthy balance of both and knowing when to bring which of those. And this is a very high level I'm speaking about. But, and it's not about within a person, you don't have to be equally well balanced. You need to be able to have access to be able to bring out your task orientation and your people orientation aspects within you. But ideally, it's making sure in our leadership team, do we have a healthy balance of the task and goal orientation and systems and structures to get there, and supportive enough of people, engagement, listening, collaboration, and a wonderful environment in order for people to deliver on the scoreboard. And then you're shooting the lights out.
You're touching on so many points here. We know that there's so many leadership myths out there. Being a leader, what's the one leadership myth that you've come across that you'd like to see disappear completely?
Leadership myth. It's not coming to me.
You obviously mentioned, workplaces are changing and leadership styles are changing. And the way we obviously, as leaders, for an example, if I'm finishing off my day, I wrap up my day or my week. And before I get down onto the lift, I ask myself one question. Have I learned anything this week? And what have I learned this week? And so I say to the rest of the team, if you guys can honestly answer this question, that you've learned something this week, you've grown, you've developed. But if you're in that lift or we're walking down the staircase or whatever it is, and it's a Friday afternoon, you're happy, you're jolly, you're going, and you feel that if you ask yourself that question, you don't feel like answering it or there's nothing coming to you, you are definitely not growing. You're definitely not, you're obviously going through the motions, So I see that as myself as a leadership point that I pass on to whoever it is that works with me, alongside me. And I find that works for me very well.
Yeah.
And the team around me bonds very well. Rather than have these expectations that, once again, our focus is delivery. We know that we need to make our targets. Bottom line, end of the year, we need to make our targets done deal. However, there are so many other granular elements that we've been missing, and I think you're touching on them, which is really amazing, to be honest.
Yeah. So you've got what you've got. There's a very clear focus on a process piece, which is the learning.
Yeah.
I would another way of maybe even being more pointed is, depending on the size of your team, but everyone, even if in a large organization's got a team generally of a small-ish manageable size answering to them, it's to understand from each individual what is probably the most important thing for you this month or this quarter to get out of your experience here that will have you in a better place personally at the end of that month or the quarter. And learning might be the one thing. Yeah. Whatever people say. So, okay, so what needs to happen in this environment in order for you to satisfy that need? And as leader, you help the person satisfy the need that they identify is most important for them, their learning, their growth, their enjoyment, their experience, whatever it might be. And then you're actually meeting somebody's growth, development, experiential need accurately, as opposed to saying, I want everyone to be happy, or I want everyone to learn, or I want everyone, whatever it might be, is to take the time to ask. And that's probably one of the most powerful leadership tools available to any leader is, I'll give you a practical example. So as a mental coach, I've done a lot of head coaching in T20 cricket. And there's something of a myth amount sort of out there in some circles that because I'm a mental coach, I know exactly what to say to players at exactly what moment, because I've obviously got some mind reading skill, which I absolutely do not have. But I, you know what? I do know what to say to a person at what time.
What time, yeah.
And do you know how I know that? At the beginning of the season, I casually make sure I drop into each one of my conversations with a new team that I've joined, and I'll say to somebody, what are the moments when you under pressure? and they'll tell me the moments, and I'll say to them, and if you're feeling pressure, what would I notice in you? And generally, it always is the noisier, the more talkative person becomes more talkative. The quiet person becomes quieter. So people become more of whatever their default is. And then I'll say, so if I notice you talking more, I notice you very quiet, I don't know you yet, but if I knew you really well, what is the smartest thing I could say to you? And they'll say to me, I'd probably put your arm around my shoulder and say, you've got this. And I just commit that to memory. And then 4 weeks later, that situation arises. I see that quiet person go quieter. I walk up to them, I put my arm around their shoulder and I say, you got this.
It works.
And they think, geez, this guy's a mind reader. But no, he just remembered.
So you're talking about workplaces and so on. So I do a lot of, obviously, business consulting, and guys want to improve their businesses. So we're going with, obviously, a different strategy in place. And one very close example that I'm trying to work with at the moment is it's a business that's doing really, really great. They're making tons and tons of money. It's a smaller management structure, but they've got a lot of teething issues, And so my question to them is that you're doing incredibly well. Your business is turning massive amounts of profits. You've got a local international operation. You obviously want to keep your structure as such, but each individual in this process needs to take accountability and responsibility for their role and take ownership of it. And one of the questions I put forward is that you've got a person that's working in the finance function, for an example, that comes in, does whatever it is, makes mistakes, kind of fixes it up and goes. And that becomes a cycle. And so, Paddy, I said to them, look, you need to ask this person, what is their function within this business, not just working in as a debtors or a creditors? What is their core responsibility to make this business work? And once we take ownership of that, and once we understand that we are all in this, we are vital cog in this wheel.
Yes.
That starts to help to improve not just the business, but I think their efficiency and their personal growth. Because leadership, I believe, as well, can go to a certain point. And then ownership then becomes us, as whether we're an employee that's working there or a consultant, to take that baton and run with it.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing there, and most people somewhere inside us, we need to feel that we matter, and what we do matter, or it counts, or there's something more than just wake up in the morning, going to work, earning some money, feeding the kids and going back to sleep. Although can be very rewarding, but sometimes it can be, is this all? Is this what life's meant to be? And that's when that happens when we start focusing on ourselves, and we don't see the connection to what ourselves and what we do with a bigger picture, whether that be the bigger picture in the family, be it within your community, be it within your religious group, be it within whatever it might be, within your society, within your country, or as a global citizen, it doesn't matter. But when we feel that our life does matter somewhere, it does add value, it gives us that something of a sense of meaning, something of a sense of purpose, even if it's not made explicit, and that engages us. And when that disconnect happens, that to a large degree can lead to loneliness, lead to depression. And a lot of depression is actually comes from focusing on me and what about me and does this matter and I don't matter. It's like a subconscious narrative. And so the example you're giving there is helping people understand that what you do in the creditors department actually matters within the context of this business. And ideally, this business doesn't matter within the context of humanity. That makes any business easier to engage in if your business genuinely adds value to a society or community or the environment. To then understand, as a creditor, I add value to this business, and the business is making somebody's world a better place to be. Then it's easier to go to sleep at night and wake up in the morning and do what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're talking about mental well-being and motivation now. Pressure, social media, expectation we spoke about. It's a lot for kids today. It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. And we constantly say that the language that the kids are speaking today is very different than what we are used to, so to speak. For sure. So how can we help them stay grounded and happy as kids itself?
Yeah. So, sure. I think we need to be asking more questions, a little bit more questions.
Yeah.
In general, I'm generalizing here. Some people do it really well. Ask questions and really listen to the answer. And wherever the answer is, where you come to understand where this kid is at in their understanding of wherever they are in life, or around their studies, around their sport, or around their relationship, or whatever it is, ask questions to understand where they're at, and then help them figure out, how can I advance? How can I progress? How can I be a little bit better, a little bit happier, a little bit more grounded, a little bit more secure, a little bit more knowledgeable tomorrow or next week, and help them design their progression without expectations of perfection. The converse is the parent or the coach or the boss who tells someone what to do, tells them where to go, tells them which direction to go. There's no engagement in that. Kids want to be engaged in their own journey. We need to help them to reflect and design their own way forward, and then to recognize that, success is not going to happen in a hurry, and failure is going to happen often, and that's okay. Like, whatever's happening with you is okay. Failing is okay. Feeling shit is okay. Feeling a bit depressed is okay, as long as you recognize it.
Yeah.
Make it okay. The first thing is to normalize it. If you deny reality, you face hell. And too much try and deny. Don't be sad. Don't be depressed. Don't do that. Don't this. It's like, no. If that's what you're feeling, that's what you're feeling. It's okay. That's normal. Welcome to the human race.
Yeah.
So first, any shift, any growth, any movement starts, number one, with recognition or awareness, or self-awareness. Yeah. And that's where the question comes in. Let's see where you're at. Okay. So what are your thoughts about, this time next week, where would you like to be?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And if they say, I want to be exactly where I am, as the coach or the parent, you've got to resist trying to then impose your view of their progression onto them. No, it's not okay to be where you are at the same time, this time next week. You need to be better at something. And then we impose our superior knowledge or wisdom on them, just like all of our parents did with us when they said to us, we mustn't go out and drink too much alcohol. Like, how many kids out there went, that's actually a really cool piece of advice, Mom or Dad. I'll go out to this party where everyone's dropping, and I'll remember your pearls of wisdom.
Yeah.
No, you need to figure that shit out yourself, and you need more than one or two opportunities. And there's still some adults who are still trying to figure that equation out.
Well, very true. I mean, it's so true what you're saying. And look, we obviously undervaluing the importance of joy, fun, and just having some fun, right? Yeah. In whatever we're doing.
Yeah. Fun and satisfaction. I mean, those are different. Fun is important, but fun is very temporary, and it's attached to doing something.
Yeah.
Where enjoyment is, you can actually do or sense of satisfaction. You can do a very hard gym training session.
Yeah.
It's not fun, but you end up with a real sense of satisfaction.
Satisfaction, yeah.
Doing something difficult and enduring and coming out the other side, that sense of satisfaction, that is much deeper. It is much more medium to long-term value than having fun. Because, what's more fun, going to do like a really hard gym session, or going to have a couple of tequilas with your mates and then swinging by McDonald's afterwards? That's lack of fun. But it ends when that ends, where doing something that actually moves you forward and adds value into the medium to long term. And I often talk about this equation that we all having to navigate the whole time. It's the short versus long term. And almost always, if you go for the short term gain, like having those tequilas, having that extra piece of chocolate cake, sleeping late, you get the short-term gain, but there's the long-term pain of lack of fitness. You put on a little bit of weight, you're a bit hungover. Versus saying, I want to eat the chocolate cake, but I'm going to go for a small piece of the whatever, carrot cake, maybe is a bad example. So I'm not getting the short-term gain, but I'm getting short-term pain because I'm saying no to the chocolate, or no to the tequila, or no to the McDonald's, or no to the late night, or no to staying in bed and sleeping another half an hour. I'm saying yes to something that's a bit difficult by eating healthy, by doing the exercise, by doing that work, that piece of work that I've been procrastinating, but I'm actually going to go and do that. It's not fun, but I'm taking a short-term pain in order to get the long-term gain. And too much, we live in a world now that is that's presenting us, social media presents us short-term gain all the time. But actually, if we go back to athletes who set that example for how to actually succeed over time, they say no to the short-term gain and yes to the long-term gain. So they say no to the junk food. They say no to the second piece of chocolate cake. They say no to going out. Not all the time, but most of the time. They say no to lying in bed. And they say yes to getting up in the dark and going and doing that exercise that they know helps them. And it's the same with every single one of us. The three most important things that we can do to move ourselves forward in life every single day is, number one, get good sleep. But we undermine it with eating late, drinking alcohol, or being on our screens at night. Number two is eating healthily, and not necessarily in this order. We all know what we should be eating, but at the moment, junk food is brought to us much quicker, much cheaper, much easier than it is to actually make healthy choices. And we go for the short-term one. And number three is exercise. We all know that, but we all tell ourselves stories to justify why we're not doing the thing that we know that actually is going to serve us in the medium to long term. And we got told when we were young about the concept of compound interest. Just making little deposits now that they don't measure. You don't see the results, but in time, they really pay dividends. And the three things that every single one of us as human, 100% guaranteed, will take your game forward. Every single human being on planet Earth. Improve your sleep by 5%, improve your eating by 5%, improve your exercise by 5%. Your life will improve by exponentially more than 5%.
That's brilliant explanation of compound interest in that context, Paddy. So, I mean, you mentioned Virat Kohli, and how disciplined he is. His focus on sleep, and I mean, we all talk about sleep as a recovery tool. Now, I mean, there's no obviously scientific figure or an accurate figure. In your opinion, what's the minimum amount of sleep that we should get, as whether we're kids or adults? I mean, obviously, some of us work extreme hours with difficult days, etc. But as a ballpark guideline, where should we be?
So that's not really that relevant as how many hours we sleep.
Okay.
What's more relevant is understanding sleep, and there's three phases of sleep that's important to understand for all of us. We have light sleep, we have deep sleep, and we have REM sleep. And we generally cycle through those in anything from 60 or 70 to 120 minute cycles throughout the course of the night.
Correct.
Light sleep is pretty irrelevant. Deep sleep, to a large degree, is when the body recovers. REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, is when the brain recovers and any learning from that day is more deeply embedded. So it's the amount of time in deep and REM sleep that's actually important. If you're being very physically active, ideally the body should have more time in deep sleep. If you've been very mentally stressed and very mentally active, ideally you should have more time in REM sleep. So the free climbers, the free solo climbers, they get like 3-4 hours a night of REM sleep. That is like superhuman amount of time of REM sleep, because their brain is so taxed and has to be so calm during those hours and hours of free climbing, because 1 second of concentration lapse, they're dead.
They did, yeah.
Now, so that's important to understand that. If you're physically active, you need deep sleep. If you're mentally active, you need REM sleep. REM sleep, if you compromise in REM sleep, you will not have access to your emotional regulation. You'll be quicker to be frustrated, irritated. Your problem solving is going to be compromised. Your thinking time, your thinking quality, everything is qualified. Your brain is, compromised with lack of REM sleep. So what's important to understand is, what are the healthy sleeping habits that set me up with the best possible chance of the best sleep happening, which is not always the case, but you've got to give yourself the best chance. And maybe if you actually get hold of me afterwards, I don't know if you've got show notes or something. I've actually got a sleep document that I prepared for Gukesh when I worked with him in preparing for the World Chess Championship. Last year, became the youngest World Chess Champion in history. And there's a sleep hygiene checklist that I created for him. But the things to know is, what are the things that are quickest to undermine your sleep, therefore undermine yourself and your performance? And I've already mentioned them. Is number one is eating late.
Yeah.
It is going to undermine your sleep. If you have to eat late and there's real value because you're with clients or you're with really close friends and the business interaction, the social interaction is really rewarding, then eat late and compromise your sleep, because you've got your benefits. Alcohol is a massive one. 1 unit of alcohol compromises sleep by 10%, 2 units of alcohol by about 20%, 3 units of alcohol by up to 40%, 4 more units of alcohol, you're going to compromise your REM sleep by 100%. You're not going to get in REM sleep. And most hangover is actually not a cause of the alcohol, it's a cause of the lack of sleep. And the third one is being on screens within, they say, and research says, an hour of going to sleep, but I would say for adults, half an hour of going to sleep. If you doom scrolling on your phone at night during the work week, when actually using your brain during the week is important, you're being just plain dumb.
Oh, that's brilliant advice.
Late eating, alcohol, and get off your phones, get off the screens within 30 to 45 minutes before sleep. Then at least you're not doing the thing that is going to guarantee to undermine your performance, mental, emotional, physical performance the next day.
So, Paddy, you obviously have come across so many professionals. You've worked with guys like MS Dhoni. You've worked with these great Sachin, etc. We all have these moments, even as normal human beings will consider ourselves, who work hard, run our businesses. We have our moments where we somehow lose that passion, and we feel a bit flat as such. How do we find ways of rediscovering this? Is it, we always scrolling online and we're finding the ton of information that comes through. They talk about yoga, we talk about meditation, we talk about reading, we're talking about going out and spending some time in the open. How do we unstuck that? How do we get re-inspired?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what athletes do is they periodize their year. They have periods of really intense training and preparation for big events. Then they have a recovery or a rest time where they have active rest. They don't go and sit in the pubs. Well, ideally they shouldn't, but they move away from the gyms a little bit, and the training, the intensity, they come off, and then they slowly pick it up and they go again. So they periodize maybe sort of high intensity times and rest, recovery, low intensity times. That's something that I think businesses, we could do a bit of a better job, because we now sort of at the beginning of January and people go, okay, so I'm going to get into fifth gear. I'm going to get this engine running hot and I'm going to run hot until December next year. That's like really not smart. We don't work like that very well. Maybe a startup entrepreneur, you can do that for a year or two, but most humans, we can't do that. So periodize it. Actually plan your year, plan your time, manage yourself, that you don't end up suddenly becoming burnt out, because it's not sudden. You're burnt out because you haven't been paying attention. That you've been burning the candle or draining your battery for too long, and then we get burnt out. That's poor management of self. So we charge our phones every night. Almost every one of us, we plug our phone in. So we also have mental, emotional, psychological battery time in our body. But the way we recharge our battery is not to plug in, it's to unplug.
Yeah.
So find your unplug. It might be time in nature. It might be time with the family. It might be time with friends. It might be meditation. It might be yoga. It might be exercise. It might be listening to music. It might be arts. It might be craft. It might be going for a walk. It might be, for some people, it might be watching a series. Whatever it is, find your conscious unplug. And I want to say it's a conscious unplug that recharges me. It's not doing something to distract me, to numb myself from the discomfort.
Yeah.
That's not recharging batteries. That's ignoring or numbing. That's almost the part definition of addictions. It's, I feel uncomfortable. How do I avoid this discomfort? And we do that with alcohol, with drugs, with pornography, with binge watching, or with binge social media and things like that. Yes, you might be escaping the discomfort, the mental, emotional, psychological, whatever discomfort, but you're not unplugging and recharging. You're just avoiding. So just be aware of what the activities that I choose to unplug and recharge. Are they genuinely charging me?
Yeah.
Or are they just numbing me for a period of time to avoid that thing? And that actually just ends up compounding.
Fantastic. So thank you for that, Paddy. I think that's very insightful. And I think that makes a lot of sense. It really unpacks that for me as well. So a very important part of this segment was talking about women's cricket, and there's a massive rise in it. So it's empowering the rise of women's cricket. So we're seeing, Paddy, globally, massive rise in women's cricket, record crowds. Money is in the women's game now. Big investments are coming in. Professional contracts in the women's IPL, the 100, the Big Bash women's league is going great. Proteas women are doing amazingly well. So many young girls out there want to be in this space now. They're slowly getting into it, especially I noticed with the cricket academy that Clinton's running as well. Everyone wants to now run and get these IPL deals signed. Parents are preparing themselves mentally for pushing the kids as well. What excites you about women's cricket at the moment? Women's cricket growth at the moment?
I think it's an expansion of the game. I mean, The game of cricket is really only played in a very small few countries around the world. So this is an opportunity to grow the game, grow the following of the game within those countries, which I think is really healthy. It's growing the opportunities within the game into 50% of the population of those countries where previously participation and professional participation wasn't available. So it's creating a whole lot more opportunity, not just for the players, for the fans, for the sponsors, the exposure. So I think that's the big thing for me, is it's spreading the game, growing the game, and providing the opportunities that previously were being left on the table.
So these kids, these young girls that are busy playing, they've obviously got a long way to go. Some of them are playing really great, have picked up quite well and doing really great in the cricketing career at an early age. What mindset do you believe? Obviously with female cricket, we've been used to males and men cricket across the years. Conditioning has been different. Is there a difference though in terms of the conditioning that should take place? What kind of mindset should they also adopt?
So I think that there are similarities.
Yeah.
If I just take one step back, I've worked in 20 different sports now, and each time I move into a new one, I wonder, are the principles that I work with going to apply in the sport?
Yeah.
And they always do. And the principles I apply in those 20 sports I apply across businesses and industries globally. The principles of success and performance remain the same. How they're applied in different sports at different levels of experience in different industries, in different countries, in different backgrounds, we apply the principles differently. So the principles don't change for women cricket or female sport, but there are clear and present differences, and we don't yet, speaking now, this is with my scientist cap on, we don't yet understand the differences well enough. We haven't studied them. We don't know them well enough. Most studies around sport and sport performance have revolved around male sport, because people who fund these studies, they want certain results, they want predictable results. But when you start studying females in performance, you start having to bring in things like their monthly cycles, the different changes that happen through these monthly cycles. So it's a lot more complex to study performance in female population. We need a whole lot more of that. We need to understand women in performance, both in individual sports and in team sports, the team dynamic in men's sports. You've got predominantly masculine energy, predominantly, but not exclusively. And again, I'm not talking about gender here, I'm talking about energy. When in female sports, you've got more of a balance of the feminine energies within those environments. That creates a different dynamic for coaches, for managers, for support staff, for captains, for leadership and performance. Because it's so women's professional team sport, certainly cricket, rugby's coming in a bit now, we had football for a while, we need to understand those dynamics and take some time to appreciate that dynamics might be different, understand them, and for coaches, support staff, leaders, is to bring our listening and figure out, what do we need? Is it different? Is it the same thing? But not just to impose our preconditioned ideas around men's sports or men's cricket onto women's cricket and women's cricket dynamics.
Okay, fantastic. So what kind of mindset should these young girls adopt right now?
Young girls, very, very easy. Play for fun.
That's it, right?
Very, very play for fun. And if you're having fun, you'll play more. And the more you play, the better you'll get. And when you're playing for fun, you will win some. It doesn't mean you're good. Doesn't mean everything's going right. It just means this time things went your way. And if you're having fun, and you will definitely lose, it doesn't mean something's wrong. It doesn't mean there's a problem. It just means this time things didn't go your way, or it went the other team's way a little bit more than your way. And that's okay. That's part of life. Just stay on the journey of having fun. If you're having fun, you will go places. If you're not having fun, revisit, readjust. And that's where parents and coaches, we are to a very large degree responsible for the degree of fun our young athletes are having. Healthy parenting will translate to healthy parent-child relationships and a healthy relationship with a child in their sport, which will get them to apply themselves, have more fun, and get better. And similarly with coaching, we need to be upgrading our coaching software from being the all-known expert barking instructions and expecting young children to deliver consistently high performances and get upset when they don't and overcoach when they don't. We need to understand what is a healthy developmental stage behavior and attitude for children, match that and help them grow, as opposed to impose our need to win, to overcorrect, to have these expectations, to fix, or to grow our own personal brand through how well our young athlete does, whether we're a parent or a coach. It's about them, not us.
It's about them, not us. Exactly. Paddy, we spent an hour and a half, and this hour and a half for me personally, with somebody that we loved listening to, loved seeing, and obviously loved reading. I think there's so much that I've gained from this. I'm sure that there's so many listeners out there, viewers out there that are going to take so much of value out of this. Now, Paddy, you obviously have a business that's very successful. You travel around the world, you meet great leaders. How do businesses get hold of you?
My website, yeah. I appreciate that. By website or LinkedIn is the best place for businesses. And as I mentioned earlier, since writing my book or producing my book 5 or 6 years ago, this parents course that I've done, it's less than an hour. It's without a doubt, it is the best parenting resource out there in the world, certainly according to all of the AI models out there that I've tested it against. And I've also been producing shorter, accessible, easy to understand courses for kids around managing pressure, managing fear, building self-esteem, building self-confidence, imposter syndrome. Those will all be released in the next short space of time. Easy to understand, commonsensical, and guaranteed to add value. No nonsense, no over theoretical. So
okay,
there's a number of ways, and you showed my book earlier. There's stuff. I feel really, really privileged to have been gifted the opportunities I've been gifted to work with the athletes I work with, and my personal philosophy in life is that my purpose is not to find my gift. My purpose is to give it away. And I have been gifted these opportunities. I've been gifted this knowledge. And that's really what my life is about, is trying to share as much as possible with the audience out there, the experiences that I've had, both of winning and losing, with the hope that it'll add value to other people, help learn, grow, and develop. So when I share unreservedly. I don't hold anything back, anything special. I'm free with all the information I give, and whether it's in a book and my social media, on paid courses, free stuff. Hopefully there's something out there for everyone to get, just even if it's one thing this year that can add 1% different, because sometimes the 1% difference is the 99% difference.
Absolutely. Paddy, you've been an absolute inspiration and motivation, not just to me, but for many individuals around me. And my closing signature question would be, if success wasn't measured in trophies or money, what would it look like?
If success wasn't measured in money and trophies,
yeah, what would it look like?
I think, wow, it's an amazing question. That I'm thinking about the people that were influenced by that individual success, how much does it bring them value, whether it's warmth, whether it's pride, whether it's learning, whether it's role model, is what is that individual success meant for other people? And if it's really added value to other people, then that's real success, compared to just, I've got all this money or all these trophies, but all I've got from it is people who admire me. But when you admire someone, it doesn't give you a whole lot of value for yourself.
Paddy, that is what we would say winning from within. And obviously, lessons in high performance for sport and life. You've given us deep insight into this. And I'm certain that every one of our listeners, viewers will gain valuable insight from this conversation with you in this podcast. I thank you very, very much for affording your time. I know that you're a very busy man. You obviously engage with so many great personalities around the world, and I'm grateful and appreciative of your time. And I know that this will add greater value to other people's lives as well.
The radio station you can't live without. This is your radio.
This is South Coast Radio.